Hello and welcome to the shop. Today I'm going to take this sled that I made in a previous video for segmenting blanks on my bandsaw. I'm going to use a piece of Spectra Ply and I'm going to try out a cool idea I have for making a segmented blank. I think you're going to like it. I'm going to be using a stick of Spectra Ply for this blank. This is identical to the piece that's on the sled. I've got my sled set to a 30-degree angle and we're going to go ahead and remove the end from this blank. I am using a clamp to help hold the blank in place because it tends to want to pull into the blade and the clamp keeps it stationary for the cut. At the belt sander, I found that there is an adjustment that allows me to move the table closer to or farther away from the sanding disc. By moving the table just a little bit farther from the disc, I'm able to use the same sled that I used on the bandsaw for touching up the edges of my blanks. And just that quick, we have a perfectly flat surface that we can glue to. I rolled the blank over 180 degrees and now I'm going to cut my first segment from the blank. I quickly touched this piece up on the belt sander. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my blank around to where the squared end is facing the blade, and I'm going to flip the blank up to where I can see the layers of Spectra Ply. What that's going to do is it's going to cut another segment like this, but it's going to cut it at a different angle, which is going to look really nice when we segment these together. Once again, we'll flip the blank 180 degrees. We'll get it set back up on the sled and we'll cut a nice section off of this end of the blank. For these smaller pieces, I find it's easier just to bring them up to the disc. Give them a quick touch and that squares them up quite nicely. I'm going to go ahead and cut another segment from each end of the blank and then we'll start our glue up. Here are the four pieces laid end to end, and you can see that the tube is just a little bit longer than the blank. But if we bring back those two end pieces that we cut off in the beginning, we put one on each end. That's the perfect length blank. All that's left is to get it glued up. Before I glue this blank up, I just want to share with you how I'm going to approach holding the blank while the glue dries. Now this is just a piece of plywood with a straight board attached to it. I've got some wax paper. That'll keep me from gluing the blank to the board and the backer. I went ahead and set a stop block at one end, clamped it down, laid my blank next to the stop block, and then I've got another block here that's used to push the blank together against the backstop. And I'm going to have a third block at this end that's going to force the blank that way to give me nice tight glue joints. So all that's left to do is loosen this up a little bit, apply my glue, we'll reclamp it, and we'll let it set until it's good and dry. The blank's been drying for several hours. Let's go ahead and get it removed from the clamps. Next step is I'll go ahead and tube it, turn it, and I'll come back and show you how this blank turned out. Here's a real quick peek at the blank. I've got it tubed and ready to go on the lathe. You'll notice that it is covered in CA glue. In an effort to give you a full disclosure, I took this to the drill press and I began drilling for my tube, and the blank started coming apart at the seams. Now I used Titebond 2 to glue this together and I really thought it would have held well. I let it set overnight, so it had about, I don't know, 20 to 21 hours worth of drying time. It should have been perfectly cured, but it did still separate. So I put it back together with a medium CA, and then I soaked the blank in thin CA, let it soak in for a few minutes, and then I shot it with an accelerator just to kind of make sure the CA got down in all of the little crevices there. So hopefully that helps it stick together. Since I had to repair the blank multiple times, you can see I went in at the center, as the entry hole, but I came out toward one of the sides, and I attribute that to the fact that I had to put the blank back together. So I'm not sure how great it's going to look when it's finished, but we're going to go ahead and turn it and see what we get. Even though I'm not going to show the turning of this blank, I would like to show you what it's looking like as it starts to true up. It's got a really neat shape. Now it's going to change quite a bit over the course of taking it down to the bushings, from where it is right now. So we'll come back in a minute and take another peek at it. Here's another peek at that blank. It's really starting to look pretty cool. As I turn it, you guys are probably seeing a couple of flaws in it. Things like here and here where I didn't get very tight fits. I'm attributing that to the fact that the blank came apart, and when I glued it back together, I had the old glue between the pieces that kept me from getting a good solid or a good tight grip. Probably should have took that back to the sander in hindsight and touched it up, but overall, it's still going to be a pretty cool looking blank. And once I get the glue situation figured out, I think I can make these look pretty amazing. Here's a quick peek at the blank. I think it turned out really nice with one exception, and that is the separation that I have down here, that line. When I glued it back together, I just did not get a really good fit. Other than that, though, I think it's a really cool blank. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today. I had a great time working on this blank. I am a tiny bit disappointed that I had the adhesion issues with the Tite Bond. I don't know what I did wrong there. I don't know if my Tite Bond is old or if, I didn't put enough on there. I don't know what the issue was. Because of that, because the blank has that gap in it, it just, in my eyes, the blank looks cool, but it just doesn't look good enough to be pressed into a pin kit. So this one's not going to make it onto a kit. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like to thank you for hanging out with me tonight. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening, everybody.